this occasion, we wanted those who've worked with Mary Ruth on the staff and in the kitchen, we wanted them in here. I would like for them to stand just a minute so all of you people can see them. Stand up here. Let's give them a real good hand, will you? There they are. "25 years ago, this last July, Mother King, who had been so wonderfully faithful to us, broke down in her work and was not able to continue. I called Mary Ruth in and asked her if she would fill in for a few weeks for her. And she filled in for a few weeks, 25 years to be exact. And she and I were talking about that on the phone today. And I said to her up here as we chatted a little bit, I doubt if in the history of American churches there has been a hostess more faithful than this lady has been. And this is why we are so happy. I don't think we ever did anything in this church that made everybody happier than the thing we're doing tonight. And we want her to know that our love and affection goes out to her because of the way she served us and the way she loved us and the way she worked for us. So we feel that you will like the program. I've turned this over to some of my trusted colleagues here, and I do not know really what's going to happen myself. I am looking forward to it. I know one little part of it, but not the rest. But when I heard that Buddy Sutton might be mainly in charge up there, I thought, well, it will be worth coming to, I know. So here we are. I turn the program over to those who have it in hand, and you will listen, and I know you will enjoy it.
Hear ye, the first division of this Supreme Court is now open for all business and come before it pursuant to adjournment. The Honorable W.H. Sutton presiding.
Court is in session. Gee, you know, I really love this job. Last week I celebrated my 35th anniversary in the job, and I don't suppose in all of Little Rock there's anybody else who has held a job that long where the people have anything to say about it. I was worried, you weren't here yesterday in court. We had a bad day. Judge DeShong and I had been out the night before, and we committed a few indiscretions, I'm sorry to say. But we came up with a judicious way to settle it, and we decided to try each other. See, we were out together, and so we decided to try my case first, and they read the charges, and I pleaded guilty to them, and he fined me $25, which was all right. And then I heard his case, and they read the charges, same thing, and I fined him $100. And he wanted to know how come, and I explained to him, well, that's the second case we've had like that in this court today. We've got to put a stop to that Mickey Mouse. And then there were a couple of lawyers in here getting ready to try a case to a jury, and one of them started off asking the questions to the jurors to try to qualify them on voir dire, and And he says, do any of you ladies and gentlemen on the jury know the lawyer for the defendant? And this one guy sitting right over there said, yeah, I know him. He's a crook. And so the guy went on and finished his question and sat down. The lawyer for the defense got up and he asked if any of you ladies and gentlemen on the jury know the lawyer for the plaintiff. And the same guy stood up and said, yeah, I know him, and he is a crook. And he kept looking at me. And I called them lawyers up here and I said, if either one of you guys ask him if he knows me, you're going to the who's cow back there? What? Don't you go to that Immanuel Baptist Church?
Yes, sir. You
know that guy that does that television show, George Purvis?
No, sir, don't guess I do.
Well, I had to borrow this robe here from him today. Kind of like it better than those black ones, you know, but I've heard that he was tight. But he had legs from the bottom of his boy's cutoff sewed to the bottom of this gown. And they say that's all he wears to church when he sings. Well, anyhow, I was watching his television show. There was nothing else on, believe me, or I wouldn't have been watching it, but they were doing a show about a bear hunt out in Wyoming where he had taken that dentist guy, Glenn Burton. And they were hunting bear out there, and of course Burton doesn't know anything about hunting bear. And Purvis says he does. I don't know whether he does or not. But they had the camera running in the tent there and the sound on, and all of a sudden, about midnight, Purvis comes running back, and he said, started putting on his sneakers. And Burton says, what are you putting on them sneakers for? He says, there's a bear out there, and he's mad. And says, we got to make a run for it. And he says, well, man, don't you know you can't outrun a bear? And he says, well, I don't have to outrun the bear, I just have to outrun you. Now, can you imagine going hunting with a dear friend like that? Well, I wanted to ask you something about your church over there. I understood that years ago they had a hard time getting them all to stay for the whole service. They all wanted to leave before it's over. And now they're just packing them in over there. They say that they are coming from everywhere, just packing them in, 2 services a day. Can't get them all in the church house. They're listening to tapes coming from Washington, D.C. and the Gulf of Mexico to join the church. You can't get a seat in the place. And last Sunday, they said there's a fellow that couldn't get in the door and tried to jump in through a window backwards. Now, I've heard of that deal of letting them down through the roof, but jumping in through a window, I don't know. And they said he didn't even have the right building. Well, what's on the docket today? Do we have any court, or is Tommy Robinson blowing them all away?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's call the first case.
Your Honor, my name is Byron Freeland. I'm with the law firm of Moses Nebuchadnezzar Smith Jones and Iscariot. I represent Mrs. Mary Ruth King, and we're here today to petition this court to have this day declared a special day, and Mrs. King declared queen for a day.
Now, I'm a little bit confused. You want to have the king declared queen for...
Well, my client is Mrs. King.
Your client is Mrs. King, and she wants to be Mrs. Queen?
Your Honor, she wants to be declared queen for a day.
She's
been a king all of her life.
I see. Now, you're a Protestant, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're a male.
Yes, sir.
You got to have lots of evidence, boy. You can't just come in here and get what you want without some evidence. Queen for a day. Now, what kind of queen do you want her to be?
Queen of the culinary arts.
Queen of the culinary arts. I don't guess if this was a law book, I'd come any closer to finding it than I would in the city directory here. Well, what is her background?
Well, she served Immanuel Baptist Church, a large church here in town, for 25 years as a church hostess, serving all types of food for the Wednesday night crowds and wedding receptions and things like that.
Well, it sounds like she might be entitled to the Purple Heart. By the way, were there some photographers around here? We usually don't have photographs in the courtroom, but we usually don't have queens in the courtroom either. I guess that'd be all right if they want to take some pictures of this proceeding, because if she makes it, it's going to be a new breakthrough in the law. Well, seat your client and let's have a hearing. There's several criteria for a queen, it says here, which must be met. The first is to do with actual planning, preparation, and serving food. 3 sets of witnesses are required. Call your first witness.
Your Honor, at some risk to my client, I'd like to call a group of teenagers who might be willing to testify.
Just come right on around. Mr. Freeland seems to think that you can verify Ms. King's ability to please different people of different taste with her meals. Let me ask you some questions about that. What is your favorite meat?
Roast beef. Hamburger steak.
What is your favorite vegetable?
Spinach souffle.
Young lady, this is a very sober proceeding. Well, let's try desserts. What's your favorite dessert?
Cherry pie. Ice cream.
It looks like all of you were taught harmony by Amon Baker over there at that church. Well, the consensus is pretty vague, but we thank you for your testimony. Incidentally, none of you were on that tour to Europe, Mr. Baker gave. We had a bunch of people in this court who were. They got off the plane and the officers thought that they were all drunk. But it said that they said they were on an emotional binge. That they had been starved for one for a long time. And they had a mixture of emotional binge and jet lag. And they appeared to be drunk because they were all singing some loud song, "Do Lord." Have you ever heard that? All right. Thank you very much. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, I'd like to call Kathleen Burton to the stand. Mrs. Burton represents a group of ladies' organizations that my client served.
Ms. Burton, what groups can you name that Ms. King has served?
Well, I know that she served all the way from the nursery to adult 9, and she has served in the Sunday school and church training groups, all of them. She served the church staff, and she served the deacons, and she served the WMU, and she's done Christmas parties for all of the young people and all ages throughout the church. And she served the XYZ and conventions and leadership committees that have met in our church. And in addition to all of these, she has served the hospital auxiliary, and she served the rescue mission, and she's also served the teacher retirement group and the youth home, Your Honor.
Well, it sounds like she might have served more potato pie than, say, Macintosh.
I can vouch for that.
Do you suppose that's what he's mad about? Well, let me ask you this question. What do you think would be the most difficult task among these groups that she serves?
Well, I would say for her to keep a group of women happy while they're eating a meal, watching a style show, knowing all the time that we can't wear any of the clothes that are being modeled. That's probably it.
Well, I can understand that. When I got married, I thought my wife looked like a little sweet sack of sugar, and now she looks like a big sack of doorknobs. If she's got anything to say about that, you ought to remember that not everybody that loves lawyers wives. Yeah. Do you feel that Ms. King is a deserving culinary artist?
Oh, I certainly do.
Thank you, Ms. Burton.
Ms. Burton, before you leave the stand, would you give one of my cards to that lady sitting right down there? Nails and horses.
Mr. Freeland, who's your next witness, please?
Your Honor, I'd like to call a member of the XYZ Club, Mr. G. McRoberts.
Mr. McRoberts, you represent the XYZ Club?
Yes, sir, I do. I'm their mascot.
Didn't I have you in this court several years ago for riding around town ringing a bell?
I believe that's true. That is true.
Your defense was that it's 1976 and it's bicentennial?
That's right.
Yeah. And yet we had you in the court in 1975 and 1978.
That is correct.
Who was the fellow that was with you ringing that bell?
I believe that on the occasion that you're speaking of, it was Dr. W.O. Vaught.
Yeah. I remember wondering at the time if y'all were the ones that broke the original bell. Well, tell me this, what does XYZ mean?
Well, it's the first 3 letters of the alphabet.
I thought A, B, C were the first 3 letters of the alphabet.
Well, at our age, we like to begin with Z.
I see. Well, tell me how Ms. King has served your special group.
Well, she has served us in many ways. Of course, she knew all of the needs of each member of the XYZ Club. She always satisfied those needs. She was particularly interested in the meats that she served because of arthritic fingers, so that you wouldn't have any trouble cutting it. She always honored the full uppers and lowers by not serving corn on the cob.
That's in here, all right. Well, do you recommend that Ms. King for the exemplary service that she's...
Our organization recommends her for this. Yes, very, very much.
Okay. Anything further from this witness,
No,
Mr.? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Freeland, if one's to meet the criteria of a queen, she should have good rapport with her subjects. Did Mrs. King personally supervise the staff?
Yes, sir, she did, and I'd like to call 2 of them to the stand, Joyce and Triopa Jenkins. Be my next witnesses.
The court welcomes you. I would like to ask you some questions about your employment. Would you state your names one at a time?
Triopa Jenkins.
All right.
Joyce Jenkins.
Okay. How long were you employed under Ms. King's supervision?
14 years.
And you?
4 years.
Can you tell me if Ms. King was always fair and just in her treatment of employees?
Yes, she was.
She treated everyone alike?
Yes, she did.
And how would you say she treated everybody?
Well, she was mean to everybody.
Well, so much for the food service requirement. Our next criteria is trauma. A queen must have successfully overcome 3 traumatic situations. Has she done this?
Your Honor, we can come up with 3 easily. I'd like to call as my first witness Bailiff Ernest Brines.
Mr. Brines, are you really a policeman?
No, sir, I used to be till they caught up with me and ran me off. I'm a keyhole cop now. Is the press here, Judge? I don't want to say anything unless the press is here.
Well, I believe we have press coverage. What is your report?
Your Honor, back in early January 1981, this lady, Miss King, was back here in the kitchen about 10:30, 11 o'clock, 11:30 or something like that, working. This fella came in there on them. She didn't know he was in there. You know, they work awful late hours. You never saw a bunch eat like that Immanuel bunch did in your life.
They look like it.
Yeah. Anyhow, she and her husband were back there preparing a WMU menu, and this heinous fella broke in there on them, come in there and took their watches and their rings and their billfolds and all of their valuables.
Well, there wasn't anything of value saved?
Yes, sir, they didn't take the WMU menu.
And you mean Miss King wasn't traumatized by that situation?
Yes, sir, she held up pretty well over there.
Well, that's okay. Thank you very much.
Your Honor, got an emergency? Need to see Miss King?
Well, this is a court of law.
We got an emergency in the kitchen. We need to see Miss King.
You want Miss King?
Yes.
What kind of emergency is this?
We've run out of food in there and can't find the ham. We don't know where they're open beans. We don't know whether they're open beans, corn, or sauerkraut.
Well, one of these young fellows just hollered in here, get a turkey, either Hess Hester or Larry King.
It's already finished.
Let me confer with my client. Your Honor, my client says the answer to this situation is just start cutting on the ham. That'll take care of everybody.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miss King.
I thought we were just going to have Tommy Robinson and Judge Beaumont in here today. This is a very serious proceeding. Well, we've covered 2 traumatic situations already. Is there a third?
Yes, sir, there is a third situation, but it's a little bit of a delicate situation. It seems that Mrs. King's former boss was a bit of a tyrant.
Well, who is this male chauvinist? Get him in here.
Your Honor, I'd like to call W.O. Vaught to the stand.
Mr. Freeland tells me that on occasions you've yelled at his client during her course of work.
Well, sir, not really. I just raised my voice, you know, and sometimes when I raise my voice like that, a sensitive person just feels like I'm yelling.
You were asking about this chair, and I don't know whether it's endowed or not. It looks like it's oak or pine to me. Well, let's get back to the evidence. Do you deny that you purposely raised your voice to the point of yelling at Ms. King?
Well, sir, deny is such a criminal word. I wouldn't want to say that.
Well, could we just say that the manner in which she received admonition from you is a matter of interpretation, and she interpreted negatively?
Well, yeah, I'd say that. I always speak dogmatically, and she just misinterpreted it, I think.
You know Jimmy Carroll?
Sometimes I claim to, yes, sir.
He told me that he had two great friends in the world. One was Orville Faubus, and that Orville Faubus always said, just because I said it, don't make it so. And he said the other one is W.O. Vaught Jr., and he's just the opposite. I'm going to write in the margin of this brief, I'm writing the interpretation as yelling at Mrs. King, and apparently, Mr. Freeland, your client survived another trauma.
She did.
It seems the next item on the page has to do with social graces. A queen must be able to respond and perform satisfactorily at social functions. Did Mrs. King so perform?
Yes, Your Honor, she did. She assisted with many weddings, anniversary parties, and other social functions at the church.
Well, do you have proof?
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask everybody in this room who Mrs. King assisted with their wedding or a wedding they were involved in, reception or party, come up on the stage and offer proof to the judge. They'll just come right up this way. File right across the stage. Every person that Mrs. King assisted.
Mr. Freeland, I must say that was very impressive. Now, there's one last item on the docket. A true queen must have a loving family. Does your client have family members present?
Yes, sir, she does have a family. I'd like to ask him to come into the courtroom. Come on up on the stage.
I'm Dick, and this is Amy King.
Dick and Amy King.
This is Mary Robin. This is Mandy King. I'm Tom. This is my dad.
Does that conclude your case?
Yes, sir.
The court is then ready to render judgment at this time. It is the finding of the court that you and your client, Mrs. King, have sustained your burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And this court declares that Mrs. King is queen for a day, for life. Now, a queen should have gifts. Are there any gifts?
Yes, sir. Your Honor, there are gifts.
Let the gifts be brought forward.
Mary Ruth, I want to tell you that you kept the WMU more than happy. You went many extra miles for us, and we certainly want you to know that we love you and we appreciate you, and we hope this little gift will be a reminder in the future of our deep appreciation and our love.
I sat in my office a little while this afternoon and tried to think about what in the world do you say when you try to speak for this many people and tell somebody you love how much you thank them for all they've done for you and for the church. I know I can say this, and you know it's true. In the long history of this church, of the several hundred people who have been employed by the church in her history, there has never been a more faithful person than this one. I know that's true. And then to add to that, I said to her as we were talking down here tonight, in the 25 years, sometimes I saw you upset. Sometimes I saw you worried. Sometimes I saw you baffled. but I never once saw you when you did not act like a true Christian. There never was one question mark put about the character of this woman by anybody who worked with her for 25 years. And because of that, we're so grateful. And I know that she set a high tone for hostess in our Southern Baptist Convention. And she is one of the main factors, maybe the main factor, in this gorgeous room and the way this program goes from week to week. So we wanted to present some gifts that you have provided for her. First are these tangible things. We know that Mary Ruth is always providing beautiful things for others, and we wanted her to have a tray like this. And right by her side for many, many years, Bob came, and in a supportive role, he stood by her. And we wanted him to have this, which he will use there at his desk. And this is beautifully inscribed. And there it is. And here is another gift for Bob King. This is from his Sunday school class, a card that has been signed by them, and the check which they wanted him to have. And I had not seen this check until just a few moments ago, but here is a check. There probably will be more, but this is a check for $4,000 that you have given that we wanted to hand to her tonight.
I think I've gained my composure enough to say, friends, you never feel like you deserve anything, but you have such wonderful people that support you and love you and pray for you every day. And then they love you in spite of your faults and your failures and the things you don't measure up to do. And even though you are loyal and faithful, you don't always do things as they should be done. But these loyal people are always behind you, and that's exactly the way I feel about Immanuel. You don't always want everything to be just, well, you'll take some mistakes and say nothing about it. Of course, if you consistently made them, I'm sure you'd have to say something about them. But you're so fine and so sweet and so loving and so kind and so dear to me until this is just something that you would do. And I don't deserve it, but I can't really imagine such a thing. But from the depths of my heart, I love you. I appreciate this love gift. And I promise you that I'll use it in a way that you would be pleased. There are some people that I just must thank. You know, you don't do anything alone. And there are just some that I must mention personally. And of course, I wouldn't even be here today and would have never had the opportunity to be in the position that I've been in for the last 25 years had it not been for a preacher. Now, I came on the staff calling him Dr. W.O. Vaught, but now he's preacher. That's our loving, kind, respectful name for him. He has been supportive through the years. There's been times when he would have liked to pinch my head off, and I had some times too. But I loved him, and I do love him. We always, nothing ever got out of hand, and I just can't say enough about this dear man. I also must not fail to say something about my dear husband, who, especially for the last 10 or 15 years, has been so supportive, so kind, never complained about the many hours I spent over here, and there were many weeks when I was over here, really more hours than I was at home. And I am grateful to him. He never did complain 1 minute about what he had to eat. And I just have to say that is something. He never said anything about the number of hours he stayed up here after everybody had left, so I would have some sort of protection. And I'm grateful to him and love him for his support. Then the office staff, of course, you know, you cannot do anything without a supportive staff, and the staff has been so supportive through the years. But there are two people who are two offices that really I work with so closely, and that's the finance office. And Doris, the girls who were before her, and then Doris and Bernice, who are in there now, have been so helpful to me. Bring me up to date on what we owed and how much we were over the budget, etc. And I am grateful for them. They never complained about a thing I asked them to look up for me, and I'm grateful for that. I'm also, Peggy Jones, I don't know whether she's here tonight, but Peggy, who was formerly on the staff and has resigned recently as preacher secretary, and I worked so closely on the calendar, and we've often boasted about the fact that during the 13 years she was here, we never had a mishap, a major mishap. Everything, we never, if we could keep Eamon in place, well, we're doing pretty good. And so we finally have gotten him on the ball, and everything has run smoothly as far as the calendar is concerned. Then I must say that this group that sits over here to my left, the ladies and the men, it would not go without these dear people. There were times when I'm a very impulsive person, and the preacher found that out too. That's not something through the years that I've learned to sort of curb that. Bob would say I'm still having to learn. But they have always been so sweet and so kind, and they knew when I was up that we tread softly, and they just ignored me. They are a dear, sweet group. I love them. You all have no idea what you have in this group of ladies and men, and how much they do, how much they work and do for the church. And I am grateful to them. I know their long hours. I know how conscientious they are. And I know that they want to please you, and they are. The supper tonight was delicious. I didn't eat all of mine, but it was not because it was not good. It was just I had butterflies. And these people that sit here at this table, I'm sure don't have preacher and Charles can eat every Wednesday night. But the food was delicious. The men, of course, who worked with me all the time about the setting up of the dining room, all I had to do was just make a suggestion or just write on paper so many tables for so many people, and tell them the angles or tell them where the tables are to be put, and they were put right there. Great, great people. They keep the church so clean. They're always willing to do what you want them to do. Of course, we've had our moments too. I expect Charlie would tell you we've had more than than we care to mention. But at the same time, we always came out ahead, and that's the main thing. They're fine people, and I'm grateful to them. I love you all, and I would not say. Oh, well, I need to also to mention the volunteer group has helped every Wednesday night. Of course, every one of you would fall in that group sometime during the year. That unit would not go without you. And we're grateful to you for these people who come every Wednesday and are so faithful at 5:45, 5:30, and 5:45 to help put the supper over. But there are two people who have been so supportive of me through the years. And for the last 10 or 12 years, I've called on them many, many, many times. And times when I didn't call on them, if they just see something on the calendar that we were going to have a big dinner, they'd say, can we help? And, of course, they're so efficient. And I'd say, oh, by all means. And they were never paid, but just so willing and so sweet and did things, as you know, in such a super way. And that's Gina L.E. McRoberts. And I'm grateful to those dear people. And then, of course, the other staff members, the other volunteer group who's been coming in on Wednesday, they have done a great job too, and we're grateful to them. Then all of you who have, I'm on the top of a lot of prayer lists in the church, and I know that. Many of you have told me through the years, especially my older friends. Ms. Luther Baker is one that stands out in my mind. I don't know whether she's here tonight, but she was one that's I've always been on her prayer list. And a number of others have said, Mary Ruth, I pray for you every day by name. I have some friends who do that same thing. And I just want to say that, friends, don't take me off. I need it. And Bob and I will covet your prayers. And we're in a situation that is not beyond us. We can certainly do it. But it tries both of our patience. And we're learning together. And in a year or two, if we're just very, very consistent in our exercises and of course, in our meals and doing everything that should be done, I hope that Bob will be out of that wheelchair. And we are working at it. So don't take us off your prayer list. You all have been so great to me through the years. There's so many of you that I just remember all the time and think about you so often. I love every one of you. I could go right down the line here and say thank you for what you've meant to me. I have been the winner in this. And not only from the lovely gifts that you've given me, and I am so grateful and so thankful for them. But just because you're you and because you're my friends means everything in the world to me if you had not given me anything. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for your support through the years. And as I say, don't forget me. I'm going to be home a while, but I'll be back. And we just want the church, this program, and the church as a whole to grow not only in numbers, but spiritually. Thank you, and God bless every one of you.
No. I won't. Yes. Now, while you remain standing, we're going to sing Mary Ruth's favorite hymn now in just a moment. But I want Linda and Paula to come out here and stand by her. These two lovely girls who are now stepping in her shoes to do the work in the kitchen and in the receptions. Here are these two wonderful women already making a place in your hearts for them. And you're going to not only, you won't take any of your affection away from Mary Ruth, but you will give them the same kind of love and support that you have given to her. I consider this one of the sweetest hours our church has ever lived through. I just thank God that I could be here and be a part of it. And so we're going to sing now the song that she requested that we sing here tonight. You have it there on the sheet. Amen.
Give him the glory. Jesus the Son. Give the glory, things be done.
Now, in order that no one will get away who wants to speak to Mary Ruth and Bob, they're going to be over in the parlor over here right now. And in fact, Gene, maybe you may want to take them right now if you want to go, and their family here, if you will go with them. They will be over here in the parlor so that they could shake hands with you. And Dick, Bob, Tom, we appreciate your coming, all of you, so very much. And this will give you a chance to greet Mary Ruth if you haven't gotten to do so. Yes.
Friends, I just cannot leave this platform without saying something to this wonderful group, this committee that planned this program and saw this night through. Goodness gracious, I told Buddy Sutton when I heard he was going to MC it that the people would come because of him. Wasn't he great?
Yes, sir.
Let me also say to Bert Thomas and to Joyce Holmes, G. Mac Roberts, I think, chaired the committee, Harry Rounseville, Dana Dietz. I don't know. I sure wouldn't leave out anybody. If someone gave me the number or the names, I am grateful to all of them. Didn't they do a super job? This has been a super night. I'll never forget it. Thank you.
Well, it has been a very great night for us. I'm so glad that you were here. Now, Buddy Sutton, the chairman of our deacons, is going to come now and close us with a word of prayer.
Our Father, we're thankful for this lovely evening that you have given us. We are grateful for the privilege of sharing love toward one another, where it has been shared so generously with us over a long period of time. We pray that you would be with the King family in a special way. May your power and grace continue to sustain them as it has in the past. And be with each of us as we turn to go from this place. We ask in the name of Jesus.